I'm Caleb from Private Auto, and today we are talking about the 2021 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon 392, and this thing has more upgrades than there are sandworms in Arrakis. Now in this video, we are going to go over some of those upgrades, but not all of them, because if we did that, it'd be like an hour-long video. But we'll also dive into the history of the Jeep Wrangler, the inside, the outside, the specs, as well as the pricing over time and what to expect when buying a used Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. Now, before we dive into this video, this exact Jeep here is listed for sale by owner on privateauto.com, the first end-to-end transactional marketplace that gives you transactional tools to close a sale on your own, anytime, any place. Now, we can't talk about the history of Jeep without going all the way back to World War II, when Jeep was first started. Jeeps, or the Willys, were the premier 4x4 vehicles that took soldiers basically wherever they needed to go during the war. And as the war started coming to a close, Jeep decided, hey, we should probably make a civilian version of this. And thus the CJ, or civilian Jeep, was born. Now the CJ lasted for 40 years, from 1945 all the way to 1985, when it was ultimately replaced by the YJ. This was also the first Jeep Wrangler that came out, so the YJ is the Wrangler edition. Now the YJ lasted from 1987 all the way to 1996, when it was replaced by the TJ. And this was the first year that the Rubicon was introduced. Now this was also the first year where the Jeep had coil suspensions instead of the steel leaf suspensions. Now a decade later, in 2007, the JK model was introduced, replacing the TJ, and the JK brought along with it upgraded technology with it, as well as reintroduced the four-door trim, which was slightly controversial at the time. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Is a four-door Jeep a true Jeep? In 2019, the latest generation of the Wrangler was introduced, bringing the JL replacing the JK edition. Now that we're all caught up, let's dive into some of the specs of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. You have a lot of different types of engines that you can get, a lot of different options. However, in 2021, when they released this model here, the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392, they decided, hey, how crazy can we get? Maybe we should stuff a 470 horsepower, 6.4 liter Hemi V8 into a Wrangler just to see what happens. This thing can do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, which is faster than the Porsche 718 Boxster that released the same year. Now on this model here, there is no two-wheel drive. This is meant for off-roading, so there's only a 4-wheel drive. You got 4-wheel high and low, and it gets 13 miles per gallon in the city and 18 miles per gallon on the highway. So it's definitely a gas guzzler. It comes standard with 17-inch beadlock wheels and 33-inch mud terrain tires. Now, these might be just a little bit bigger than that. Now, like we said at the beginning of the video, this thing has a ton of upgrades. So now we're gonna do a little bit of a walk around and talk about some of those upgrades, as well as some of the things that still do come standard with the Rubicon 392 edition. Now, this Jeep here is a custom build by Rebel Off-Road, and that means it has a ton of upgrades. We would need like an hour for this video to go over all of them, but we'll go over some of them and just point out some of the things that we see here. Therefore, I'm gonna use my phone because there are so many upgrades. All right, so underneath, you've got the Dynatrac Elite 60/80 axle package, which gives you a super high gear ratio. It includes a master bearing kit. You have upgraded brackets plus a ram skid plate underneath. And if you look underneath, like almost the entire thing's a skid plate, which is pretty awesome. And it increases the width of the vehicle to 68.5 inches wide. Is it wider than I am tall? So it's a wide Jeep. This thing can basically go over anything you need to in Moab. It's pretty awesome. Next up, in terms of upgrades, you also have a TerraFlex Nexus 2.2 steering stabilizer and rod clamp, which drastically improves the steering smoothness and gives you better feel to the trail that you're going over. And then up front and rear, you have the Adams drive shaft package. In the tires, you have KMC Grenade Crawl 17-inch beadlock wheels, which means you can deflate your tires a ton to get over a lot of those rocks and maintain that grip. Now, since we're up front here, you have the Warn winch, which is a massive upgrade. You also have giant projector headlights that are in addition to like your normal headlights, so you can see pretty much anything you need to at all times. Then as we work our way around here, you also have the Rebel Off-Road DSS kit for both the front and rear. And on this Jeep here, the front coilover conversion was welded and the rear one was bolted. So keep that in consideration. Then as we work away on the side here, you also have a rock slide rock plate on both sides, but on the driver's side, you get the sweet step that folds down, which is really nice for a short guy like me, because now I can get up without struggling. And then while I'm up here, you also have a roof rack, which has a Pelican case up top for cargo, and you have additional lights up here. Now, let's work our way further around back. You can see here the Rebel DSS package again on the rear, and you have the same massive tire on the back with your backup camera here. And same as on the front, you also have these hooks for pulling things or getting towed out of difficult spots. But based on this build here, I don't think it's gonna need much help getting out of difficult spots. It's gonna be the one doing the towing. Underneath, you got the skid plates right here, and you also have 2 exhaust pipes on either side, which we will give you a quick look at how they sound, because unique to the Rubicon 392 is there are 2 exhaust modes. You can have loud and really loud. Now it's time to go inside the vehicle, and before we go inside, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel as we release one of these listing review videos every single week. Let's go inside. All right, welcome to the inside of the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon 392. Up front, we got a lot of controls here. We have the ability to lock both the front and rear differentials. You also can control the sway bar, do off-road plus. The gear shifter here is pretty cool because on top it has the original Willys. You also have USB ports, and the window controls, increasers, decreasers, are up here in the middle because the doors are removable. So that makes sense that they would be right here in the middle. You also have all of like your normal controls, as well as the ability to switch between exhausts if you want loud or really loud. Then you have an 8.4-inch touchscreen up here. Then you also have this shifter here, which is for the 4-wheel high or 4-wheel low. And you can do auto 4-wheel high or part-time 4-wheel high. Then you also have just like a lot of metal, like metal here, metal there. It goes all the way to the back. You also have removable hardtop up here. Then back down here into the steering wheel, you've got metal paddle shifters that are integrated into the steering wheel. Your ability to do cruise control, control a lot of like the electronics here. And then this Jeep here has the S-Pod power management system here, which might be a little hard to see from that angle, but this controls all the exterior additional lighting systems, as well as any other electronics that you might have in the Jeep is all controlled by this little panel here. And then as far as like seating arrangements here, you have the nice stitching throughout these nice leather seats. You've got the Rubicon 392 stitching right here in the back of the seat. On the floor, you also have your all-weather mats, which are super easy to clean, very needed for those super fun, muddy Moab trips. And then with this vehicle specifically, underneath this seat, you have a compressor. So when I say this thing was truly built for off-roading, I think the owner of this vehicle thought of literally everything. You also have a lot of handles here as you're going over the rough terrain, and you also have some handles in the back, and the back is pretty spacious, so that way you can scare passengers with your crazy driving off-road as well. And then last but not least, you've got integrated speakers in the roof here that stay there even when you take off the roof and the doors. As we work our way into the back here, you've got the traditional Jeep Willys figure here in the mat, which is, I don't know, it's just unique, which is pretty cool. You also have the 150-watt outlet here in the back if you need to charge any of your belongings, as well as USB ports, which are both USB-C and just your basic USB ports here. You can also control the windows, and a lot of the stuff back here is hard plastic. Adds to the ruggedness. You won't be worried about like ruining your vehicle, and it's also super easy to clean. You also got 2 cup holders here, which is super handy, and that actually pulled down the entire seat, which, all right. And then last, but not least about the back, you can fold down the headrest, great, back up, and you can also fold down the seats here, almost flat. And in the back, it's got this sweet mounting system for a fridge, which pulls out at a slight angle. Now let's talk about price. In 2021, when this model here, the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon 392 launched, it launched with a price tag of about $75,000. Now, depreciation rate for this thing is only about 10% over 5 years, but that's estimated because we haven't hit 5 years yet since 2021. Now, the reason depreciation is so low for this Jeep is because in 2021, when they launched, only 6,417 were produced. So it keeps the supply low and demand is high, which keeps that depreciation rate pretty dang low. Now, this Jeep here is listed for sale by owner on privateauto.com with a price tag of about $140,000. That's because it has so many upgrades. And that's $140,000 or best offer. So if you want to experience all the upgrades for yourself, get over here and give it a test drive. Now, when you show up for that test drive, let's talk about what to look for when buying a used Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Now with this model, sometimes the fuses aren't seated super well, so it can result in some electronics problems, or some of the wires did sit kind of close to where there was a lot of heat. So test out the electronics. Go on a test drive, turn on cruise control, turn on the lights, turn on everything that uses the electronics just to make sure they are functioning properly. Now there was a recall on the backup camera because it would fizz out sometimes, or sometimes the lines wouldn't appear as you're backing up. This was fixed with a software upgrade that was done at most dealerships. So be sure to throw that thing in reverse to check to make sure that yours still works before buying it used. Another thing that can happen with a lot of modified Jeeps is what's known as the death wobble. This can be felt on the highway. Now, it's not a big red flag when going off-roading, but it may be pretty rough on the highway getting to your off-road trip. Another thing to look out for in your test drive is pulling. So it may be pulling to the right or to the left. That can be a result of the tires that are on it. So if they've replaced it with aftermarket tires, that can be affecting the pull or alignment of the vehicle. And alignment fixes aren't super expensive, so it's not that big of a deal. And then last but not least is kind of the maintenance costs of what you can expect over the course of about 5 years with one of these Rubicon. After doing some research on this, it can vary widely, but the general consensus is it's about $6,000 over the course of 5 years in terms of like cost of owning a Rubicon. All right, now that we've gotten to the end of the video here, let's talk about some final thoughts. If you are looking for a completely overpowered Jeep that's so ridiculously powerful, it's fun, this Jeep is for you. This one specifically has been upgraded with every possible thing you could think of for having an ultimate off-road companion. There are so many upgrades that make it perfect for the trails, whether you're down in Moab, going over some massive rocks, or in the trails of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, this Jeep is for you. That's all for this video. We'll see you next week on another Private Auto listing review video.